What's up, good people? So today I'm just gonna give you some biblical timelines and some other stuff that I'm reading out of the study Bible that a lot of people don't know because everybody believes this book is written in Hebrew, and when it's actually a translation from the Greek. Uh, from my understanding and what I've looked at, there is no original Hebrew Bible ever found. No original Hebrew Bible ever found. Everything has been Greek, translated from the Greek, so on and so forth. Now, like I said, again, I had this King James Study Bible, and it has like little notes and stuff in it. And this one right here is about the parts of the Bible that was been taken out, the Apocrypha. And it came during the Reformation, which means the people who reformed the Bible, they didn't like all the books that were in it in the first place, and so they took certain things out of it. And then they still wanted, like for some of these books that are in the actual Bible, it tells you that they are non, what you want to call non-biblical. And so people believe everything that they read in these books are biblical. Some of the books in the Bible are non-biblical, and then also the apocrypha. But let me go ahead and read this to you. It says the apocryphal books were added to the Septuagint, Greek translation of the canonical Old Testament. The Old Testament is written in Greek as well, all right? Because Greek-speaking Jews wanted access to Jewish holy books plus important non-biblical books. The early church widely used the Septuagint, and though the Apocrypha was rarely and mistakenly equated with inspired scripture, it was right. It was rightly the Apocrypha and the Reformers elected to separate it from the canonical books. Thus, the Apocrypha came to be excluded from the Protestant Bibles. And for people who don't know what the Apocrypha is, I think it's about another 14 books. And in those 14 books, there's some stuff in there, if you ever read it, that you wouldn't really want to know, for the simple fact that it tells you about Alexander the Great. It tells you about the Jesus before a so-called Jesus or whatever, who was just a man and all that, who was named after his grandfather Jesus. So other Jesuses existed prior to some Jesus coming to be. And like I said, with Alexander the Great, it picks up from the Old Testament, where the Old Testament ends with the conquering of the Persians. And so with these timelines, a lot of people don't know. Now, the book of Job and Genesis happened around about the same time. Where Genesis, I mean, supposedly happened, right? And then during that time, well, whatever happened with Job happened before everything started happening with Abraham. And I mean, like I said, if you get your study Bible, like the one I had that has the timelines in it, it'll show you whatever timeline they created. And which is crazy to me is that for the book of Genesis, they do have, I mean, for the timeline, it has a question mark for creation. I don't know if you can see that. See, so it really starts at the flood. So it has a question mark in there for creation, but for the book of Psalms, it has it it has it starting at 3000 BC, which would be crazy because supposedly David wrote the book of Psalms, and we know David was not alive during that time. I'm pretty sure of that. And so it even has the book of Psalms starting before the flood. I don't know if that's an error or what, but it states that the Book of Psalms had been started being written well before well before the Bible was actually written, starting from the flood and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. And so with these timelines, it'll tell you about when everybody was born and all that kind of stuff. And so uh, some of the things you could put together from after Genesis, you got Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and Joshua. All pretty much. Well, now Joshua came right there at the end because we all know supposedly Moses died, and so from the Exodus was supposed to be in like around about 1445, and then once they get out of there, they get the Levitical laws and stuff like that in the round about at the same time up until like 1440, which anybody know that like from the BC time you're counting down, not up like what we're doing now. And then numbers also, you get the numbers. They were while they was out walking around in the wilderness, they were counting each other and stuff like that. And then during that time as well, while after numbers, here you come with the judges, pretty much from, and the judges went on from like 1400 to 1100. Okay, but like I said, you can go back and get some of this stuff yourself, but everything tells you like between the timelines what happened. So actually, 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel would actually be the first two books of the Kings because these books have what you want to call like um little title descriptions in them and stuff like that. And so when I got to Second Kings, it tells you this is actually the fourth book of Kings, because First Samuel and Second Samuel, even though I mean, like the actual Kings go into detail with more kings and stuff like that. Samuel is probably a little vague, like specific kings and something about their era and all that kind of stuff. And so during the king's times, then you get Chronicles. This is where they giving you all the bloodlines and all that kind of stuff. The order of them as they came, and so uh, the one thing that I want to point out is like, I mean, especially like with Isaiah, you know, they talking about how Jesus came, but in the timeline of Isaiah is from the year 740, between 740 and 500, and these are all the things that happen in there. And you, what you need to do is go match that up with the kings and find out what was going on. Even though it tell you, if you read the beginning of every chapter, like at the beginning of Isaiah, it tell you these are the things that happened when King Uzziah, Ahaz, or whoever were the kings. And so what you can do is take that and go back and match up and see what was going on between them times. That's why a whole lot, I mean a whole lot of the verses actually duplicate each other. It's because they already told you one time over here. Now all they're doing is taking it from the view of the prophets and telling you again what happened. And so, and then when you precept, a lot of the precepts will take you back to the time eras that they have. Now, more important than anything, let me get to these couple of books here. You got Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, Daniel, um, and maybe Haggai and Zechariah. That there was probably no God. These books do not have, I mean, like, even though you're reading it, these are supposedly be like inspirations from them, because now they already been pretty much taken into captivity. And supposedly uh with the Persians, God gave King Cyrus, or yeah, I think Cyrus, dominion over all. And so when you start reading them books, if you really pay attention, God is no longer speaking in these books. It's him telling to go. like in one of the books, he telling them, if your God be with you, go and build his tower, rebuild his whatever, his temple or whatever, which they were not able to do. And so, and then when you read the other books, it's still telling you that like what was going on between that time where they were being um, like you had people coming through messing with them, telling them, like yeah, some people come through and like we want to help you, and they like nah, you you ain't us, so you can't help us, and so they would write a letter to the king and stuff like that, and then they get shut down. And then as the different king or whoever was in charge died, then things changed for them. They wasn't able to, some of them let them do it, some of them shut their shit down, tear their shit down again. And so we're putting, and then another one, Obadiah, it starts in like the year 2006 BC all the way up to 600. Now this is where pretty much everything dealing with Esau and Edom, whatever. I mean, for the dumb people who think like, you're trying to put this together, these the white people. It'll even tell you in there that they came together and fought with them against, I believe Egypt or something like that. But I mean, in Obadiah, it tells you that they came together, they fought against them, and so my question would be this then. I mean, if the so-called people came together and helped you fight then, I mean, what is it that you have against them now? Even though anybody who actually read knows that Esau is not the white people. As a matter of fact, he took an Egyptian wife. Come on, think about that. Took an Egyptian wife, and so I mean, like if anything, if you want to call him white, they mixed as hell. I mean, he was red and ruddy or whatever you want to call it, but he took an Egyptian wife, which would have been a black woman, and so. There you go. Them a whole bunch of mixed people right there. But people claim because it also states that like uh once they were captured that Esau stood by and looked and laughed at them. Shit, I mean they wasn't part of that fight at that time. So I mean it still don't make change their race because that little old part right there you have to go back and read. You gotta be on uh some pretty much knowledgeable shit to know that. Or now you don't even got to be knowledgeable to know that if I got a twin brother, just because he light skinned don't make him white. I mean, and just because he's from a different nation don't make him no different than me. It's just that we separated and we started our own thing. But like I said, Obadiah, the reason why it lasts so long because we all know that once Jacob and Esau were born, they were twins. So Esau time starts pretty much the same time, even though it don't go too much into detail in the Christian Bible. And so, like I said, it's different things that you can look at. And so, I mean, I'll show y'all what I did. It'll look like chicken scratch, but I took and I wrote down all the timelines and the years. And so, but I've been doing this. I've been on this where I can go back and look and see what was going on during this time and what was going on during that time based on what I'm reading from. But just like I said, from Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, Daniel, Haggai, and Zechariah, a lot of it, I mean, even though it's saying the Lord and stuff like that, it's just like, it'll tell you if you read if you ever study Bible, that they were coming trying to encourage them. And, supposedly it was probably visions coming to them, but God was talking to all the people or whatever. No, not even no fact that he was talking to them. But my point is, especially dealing with them, those books right there, is that remember, it's supposed to be stated that God was going to turn his back. God turned his back over from now. Let me see. I once said 2400, but I mean, I'm gonna go back a little bit because I mean, I'm gonna add a couple of years, probably around about 25, 26, 26, 2700 years now. God has not been active. He stopped being even active in the book. This is where the Persians come in and they conquer. And then it even tell you in here, it breaks down the thing that Persians and the Greeks of in either in Ezra or Esther, one of them, it'll tell you that is about the Persians and the Greeks now. And then that's why I say then when you get over into the Apocrypha, then comes Alexander. And so, I mean, it's something you really got to think about. I mean, like really, I mean, like if you're a Hebrew Israelite and all that kind of stuff, man. I mean, trust me, this book that you're reading is written in all Greek, no Hebrew. Supposedly, the Septuagint is the 70 elders that came together and translated from the Hebrew to the Greek. But like I said, the Hebrew or whatever was never found. And so everything that we've been raised off of or we know of, it comes in the form of the Greek. And then you get your Greco-Roman period, like I said again, and that's where you get your New Testament from, in which, you have your societies of Jesus and all that kind of stuff dealing with the Pope and all that. And so, but even that is, like I said, like 500 years later. Somebody, matter of fact, in the Apocrypha again, in Esdras or whatever, Esdras, it tells you that Esdras had to rewrite the Bible. Esdras had to rewrite the Bible, the entire Bible, because the entire Bible or whatever had been destroyed. There was no knowledge of what had happened previous to that. And that's if you believe in the Apocrypha, especially for, I mean, for the Hebrews who try and run over there and use it and stuff like that. If you really read it, you know that Esdras had to rewrite the entire uh, Old Testament or the whatever over again. So when we say Moses wrote it, actually no, whatever Moses wrote no longer existed. Esdras rewrote it all over again, and then more than likely after that, here comes your. Uh, I mean, where's that book at? And then it tell you that that book had between Ezra's and five other people, it was 400 and something books, and 70 were sacred that only the eyes of the faithful or whatever would ever see. But if that's the case, we already know that I believe it's like 70 some books in here or 60 some books. I mean, is this the sacred books? I mean, that the eyes of the faithful, when we know damn well that most of the eyes of the faithful ain't reading this book. And then out of the 400, why is there only some? Like, what happened to the other 300 and something? I mean, like I said, I mean, like you, I mean, like they tell you, you don't know how to read the Bible. I tell you, you do. You do know how to read the Bible. It's just all about. It's like one of them books that have like different endings and stuff like that, where you can go back and read from this point and add different things to make the ending be the other way that it is. With the Bible, it's pretty much, if you read it straight through, you done pretty much read everything that was going to be about, but you just didn't know when the timelines were what it was talking about. You keep thinking future, 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 when actually every other book that you're reading is dipping back into a different timeline. So, I mean, when you get time, I mean, people don't read. People ain't read this book like that. I have. I'm sorry, I have. Especially, I read the Old Testament at least 3 times, and then have been back and forth in it. The New Testament I've probably read like twice. But like after after I started putting stuff together, I was really no longer interested in the New Testament because I know the New Testament is really not part of the Old Testament at all. Even though I don't believe in the book as a whole being divine or whatever, I do believe that it has historical events in the Old Testament. Now the New Testament, I don't believe none of that shit happened, except I mean, probably Paul starting a Catholic Church and all that kind of stuff. But as I stated from what I was reading then, that the the reason why the Protestants took out the New Testament, and hold on real fast, let me go. I seen something that I was gonna make sure I gave y'all. It was at the beginning of one of these books. Just to prove to you that I ain't really tripping on what I'm telling you about this Greek stuff. The book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible, the book of Genesis. And like I said, the study book. I'm just gonna read from here. Uh, the book of Genesis is the great book of the beginning in the Bible, true to the meaning of its Hebrew and Greek names. And it says Genesis permits us to view the beginning of a multitude of realities that shape our daily existences. All right. So I've been saying that Hebrew and Greek is the same thing. I mean, I didn't make this up. It say the book of Genesis is the great book of the beginning in the Bible, true to the meaning of its Hebrew and Greek names. Hebrew is Greek. And then, okay. And before I let y'all go, let me go back over here to this Old Testament and the transmission of the canonization of the new book. All right. And so, with that, it says the term canon is used to describe the list of books approved for inclusion in the Bible. I mean, that it was way more. It's probably way more New Testament bullshit out there, but somebody approved it, so they was writing this shit to see, like, probably which one is going to best match up, and then somebody picked and chose which books would actually go in. And it stems from a Greek word meaning rod, as in a straight stick that serves as a standard for measuring. Hence, uh, to speak of the biblical canon is to speak of authoritative books given by God, the teachings of which define correct belief and practically. Obviously, only books inspired by God should be received as canonical. How do you know which ones were received by God if it's telling you now that it was a selection of the books, and it had to be approved. And they say that another thing it say is that it was 27 27 books of the New Testament approved, 27 approved books of the New Testament. And so, like I said, I mean, if you really trying to learn something, but I mean, like most, I tell you, I mean, like what I'm telling you now, man, I mean, you, I mean, the whole I mean, it's hard with the Old Testament. It's sort of hard. I mean, shit, I don't know. As far as like trying to put this shit together. I mean, like, there's no way that Genesis got a question mark by it, that don't nobody know when it was and all that kind of stuff. But I guess, but then there wasn't no way in hell that Some started before it, but then it'll tell you that Isaiah is a book full of poems, poems and writings, or what you call it, prophets, prophecies, poems and prophecies. A lot of these books are poems. Hey, think about that. But man, but I mean, like until the end, the next time, good people. Like I said, I'm working on this whole this Jesus thing, man, and that's what brought me to knowing, like, from looking into the whole Jesus thing and where the precepts were taking me. That's it took me all the way back to showing that God left the book, and so um, from the books that I gave you, God actually left the book. And then in Malachi to tell you that he'll send Elijah. Elijah already came. All you have to do is go to the end of Chronicles and see that Elijah came and the curses that he put on them, and then after that he turned his back on them. And so, I mean, this God hasn't existed for a while now, or then turned his back and don't know when he coming back or whatever. But like I said, I'm working on these precepts. I have some for y'all again later. Until then, all right, good people.